All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. We're gonna stand in a holding pattern here for just about a minute and
There's Joel right there.
yeah, allow some folks to jump in. Looks like folks are just starting to show up now. So stand by and we'll kick things off here in about 45 seconds. And that wasn't quite 45 seconds, but I couldn't take the awkward silence anymore. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar, Accelerated Digital Transformation with Kuali Build. My name is Paul Smith. I'm your host. And with me today is Liz Christianson and Joel Dehlin. And go back a slide, Liz. A few housekeeping items before we dive into the webinar. We are recording the session, so for anybody who might have missed it, or if you'd like to watch it again later, we'll have that link available to you guys. All attendees will be on mute, but very important, as you have questions, just be sure to drop those in the chat window here in Zoom, and I will relay those on to Joel and Liz. So as I was starting to say, with us today are two presenters. We've got Liz Christianson. She's our Vice President of Sales and a real Kuali Build expert. We call her our master builder. And of course, Joel Dehlin, our CEO and one of the founders of Kuali. We're excited to have you both. I'm excited about this no-frills demo of Kuali Build. We get to show off what this thing can do. So with that, I'll bow out and hand things over to you, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul. Before we get started, for those of you who aren't familiar with our Kuali Build webinar series, I wanted to introduce you to the webinars that have come before this. And, I'm very sorry. I decided it'd be great to have my drawer open for this webinar, but I didn't know it was trash day and they're really loud. So I'm just going to shut this real quick. I even tested that. Let's talk about this webinar series. We've had a great series, and for those of you who haven't been able to attend this, the links to these webinars are on our website. In January, we talked about conquering the hidden backlog. This addressed that idea that we assert that you're just really not going to be able to accelerate your digital transformation across your campus if you don't address those businesses' processes where they begin, which is across your campus and your departments and your offices with your functional users. In April, we had this wonderful webinar hosted by our own CEO here, Joel Dehlin, where he talked about and presented information for you about the difference between no-code and low-code solutions. I know for a lot of you, this difference, differentiating between these two types of solutions sometimes can be difficult. And if it is for you, I really recommend you going and watching that webinar. Joel presented a lot of great information there. And then in May, we loved our webinar in May. In May, we were able to host a roundtable of CIOs. We had Garrett Yoshimi from University of Hawaii System, Kevin James from Davidson there in North Carolina, and Elaine Kenyon from Damon University in New York. And they were able to talk about how they have used Kuali Build to lead some of their digital transformation strategies across their campus. I loved what Kevin James said from the CIO from North Carolina. He talked about, all of your big enterprise solutions, your ERPs and your SISs and all of those types of solutions, and how Kuali Build has become the glue for them between all of those solutions. And I loved thinking about Kuali Build as the glue for your campus. So again, if you haven't seen those webinars, I recommend you go to our website and watch those. Today, what are we covering today? So today we're going to talk about how Kuali Build can help you accelerate your digital transformation. We're going to cover how user experience propels adoption, cover how powerful reusable integrations help to accelerate that transformation. And then we're going to get to that distributed management with automated role-based permissions, automated role-based approvals. I do want to pause here just for a second. I want to go to that bullet point number 1, user experience, or that UX experience, how people experience software, propelling adoption, because I get to have our CEO, Dehlin, who has this, large span. I'm not calling you old, Joel, but he has a large span of experience in the software industry. Joel, we put this bullet point here. In your experience, how important is that UX propelling adoption?
When you're trying to get somebody to use a new system, if the users have to be dragged along because it's difficult to use, they're just going to be uncomfortable and they're going to push back every step of the way. So I used to be this chief technology officer at Instructure, and we built the Canvas product, and our motto was, it was the LMS that gets used. And that's why we were able to displace Blackboard so quickly, was because users enjoyed using it. And that's what we focused on here at Build. We focused on creating something that IT could safely give to end users that they could use and would enjoy using. They wouldn't have to be dragged along to do it, but they could do it in a safe manner. So user experience is everything. If it's especially with a younger and younger workforce, and all these new students that are coming in digitally native, it's got to be easy for them to use.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I decided, since you were talking and I'm thinking through how I'm going to demo Kuali Build, I do want to actually talk about bullet point number 2 with you just for a minute. Because I'm thinking about how I'm going to show our powerful integrations, how I'm going to show how they can easily map to be just data sources for those form builders. I'm going to show all of that. But there's this word reusable in here, and I'm thinking about custom web applications and how you have to create integrations for each one of them. And I'm wondering about the value. If you could talk about, just for a second, the value of reusable integrations.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Integrations, we hear the word integration and it seems scary to us. It's a big integration with lots of XML or SOAP or whatever, and it doesn't have to be that scary. If you think about the enterprise data that IT would want to make available to form designers to be able to build into their forms, it can be simple stuff like, I want to drop down with the buildings on the campus. I want a list of the different programs. I want a list of the different courses. I want to create a list of any kind of table. And then that data can be reused in radio buttons, in checkboxes, in dropdowns and whatever. But they're simple, little integrations that can be used by form designers. We often use Legos in a lot of what we do when we go to events. And the idea is that you can construct really high valued things from very small pieces safely.
Thanks, Joel. And I love that you mentioned the Legos, because those of you who have never come to our EDUCAUSE booth, come to our EDUCAUSE booth. We always give away something marvelous like Razor Crest Lego. So you should come by our EDUCAUSE booth if you go to EDUCAUSE. Okay, let's get going here. Joel, because you're here, and some of the folks on the call, they know Kuali, they're our friends, they've come to see what Kuali Build can do for them. Some of them never heard about Kuali. I wonder if you could introduce Kuali to our group here.
Yeah, I'll do so quickly. So Kuali, we think of ourselves as amazing software for higher education, and higher education traditionally has not had amazing software. And I think a lot of colleges and institutions have effectively been abused by software vendors, and we wanted to create a company where the software was delightful to use. So that's what we did. And what we're focused on is supporting the higher ed mission of student success, research, and community service. We're really focused on a great user experience, but we do so in a very modern way. And we have this really, really robust community. We have great conferences, user group meetings, and we take a lot of feedback from our customers. The benefits of our software are really, it's mobile software. It's super easy to use, and it's accessible out of the gate. So when you're creating forms, you don't have to worry if the forms are mobile ready. You don't have to worry if the forms are accessible, and you don't have to worry as much about whether they're easy to use. But we do all that with a great back end where we do continuous delivery. So new features, we're creating new features, we're fixing bugs, we're doing enhancements continually. You don't have to wait a year or 9 months for a new version. But we also have a zero bug policy. So with Kuali Build, our zero bug policy, our policy is that when somebody finishes a feature, before they start a new feature, they have to make sure there are no bugs in the queue. And the reason why we do that is, even if they're small bugs, we want customers to be delighted each time they use the software. And if we keep up on the bugs, then the developers are running on the road when they're working and not running through the mud with a bunch of technology debt. That was a real fast summary of that slide. Kuali started off as a foundation in 2004. The foundation was building software for higher ed, had some great success. In 2014, we decided to create a company, and the idea was to modernize what we were doing. Professional developers, full-time dedicated software developers, designers, customer success, sales, all of the things that you get in a company with the original ethos of the community. And that's what we've done. Kuali is the next generation of the Kuali Foundation, building this great software. We have about 220 customers now and growing super rapidly. The first half of this year, the growth has been incredible.
Okay, thank you so much, Joel. I'm going to take over from here and talk to everybody a little bit more, focusing on Kuali Build. Again, this is what we're covering today, but we really want to talk about why we developed Kuali Build. Our customers needed to be able to answer these two questions. How do we automate processes on our campus? How do we capture data, right? How do we process that data, get approvals? How do we manage that data? So how do we automate the process? But it's really a twofold problem, right? And they're tied to each other, but they're actually really distinct. The second problem is, how do I manage an automation tool on my campus? If I'm central IT and I'm creating solutions, I'm creating forms and approval processes for my departments, and then I'm going to empower those departments, right? How do I do that? How do I have role-based permissions to be able to control, but also empower? Both of those things are really important. And with Kuali Build, we have tried to solve both of those problems. What we found when we went out into the marketplace is that we really had a dichotomy of solutions, where on one end we have these really simple and easy types of solutions, some of them papered, right? So you have your paper and PDF solutions. Some of them, like Google Forms or Qualtrics or any of those, they're really great, but don't meet your data security needs and can't move through that dynamic workflow or approval process the way you want them to. Then on the other end of that spectrum, you have these really complex and powerful types of solutions. Those types of solutions that Joel talked about in his webinar, no code versus low code. Most of those solutions are low code solutions where you need to be an engineer to be able to work them. It goes a little bit slower and difficult to iterate on because you have to go in and change that code. Here's the sweet spot that we want to hit with Kuali Build. We want to be powerful enough for IT, but also easy enough. Have that user experience, right? For your typical non-technical user, your functional users, to be able to create and manage their own solutions. So again, we want to enable IT to safely increase their capacity. We want them to be able to chip away at their backlog. Coders are always going to code, right? And coders always want to code, but they don't need to code a form and workflow process. You can use a solution like Kuali Build, a no-code solution, to be able to do that. We also want IT to be able to empower departments. On that back end, IT can do all of those API integrations, but in the form designer, in the workflow designer, we can just have approved data sources for our form designers and workflow builders to be able to use. So in order to do this, and in order to empower IT and empower our departments, we need to have scalable power. We call that distributed management. We call that spaces. And we're going to show you a little bit of that later on in this webinar. So there we are. That's all my talky points. And we're going to get to the live demo now. So I know I have a lot of people on the call right now or in the webinar right now from different areas of the campus, right? And so I want you to think about that glue that Kevin James talked about, or if you were to watch that webinar, you could hear Garrett Yoshimi talk about their 1,000, right? 1,000 Kuali Build apps on their campus. So that's a lot of forms and workflows. So it might be something as simple as a travel request, right? And that goes through a simple workflow, just a little branch to say, you know what, if this is going to be outside of the US, it needs to have a different approver. So you're able to branch on that conditional logic or business rules that you have on your campus. Maybe it's something a little more complex, like a software acquisition request, right? Where you have some radio buttons, or you have these conditional buttons where you say, well, what are you requesting? If it's a replacement, you're going to have a particular second page. If it's a new software request, a different second page. New development, a completely different set of requirements there. And then, of course, a little bit more complex workflow, right? Because we have those, if it's a new request, it's going to branch this way. If it's new development, it's going to branch this way, or just replacement, right? What if you are in the research department and you just want to create simple forms like a no-cost extension with a really simple linear approval process that just branches on whether that's internal or external, has a little bit different approval process connected to it? What if you're in that same research department and you need something more complex? You're the type of school that makes your principal investigators jump through the hoops before they can even, just we want a cover sheet and pre-award if we're even going to allow you to start a grant application. And then you take that through something, a more complex workflow, right? That's going to branch on all those variables that you might have in your form or in your metadata available for you. What if you are a registrar and you need an add drop form, but you need that add drop form to be able to tell you, is this before or after the add drop deadline? You're going to have a different set of questions and require a fee, right? And send that through. But what if you just need a simple program change request? This is what I'm going to make for you today. I could make any of those forms for you today, but I want to show you our form builder and our workflow builder. And I want to show you where all of these documents are managed in our document dashboard. So I'm going to create a simple form, a program change request like this, so that you can see those builders. So let's jump back to my homepage. This is my homepage. This is my instance of Kuali Build, and you can see that I make many, many apps here. Each one of these icons, if you haven't seen Kuali Build before, remember, we don't just want our customers or our users to use our product. We want them to be delighted. We want them to come in and say, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to build in Kuali Build. So each one of these icons represents one Kuali Build app. And each Kuali Build app then contains a form, the workflow or approval process, right? And the documents created by that form. So that's one app. So I'm going to create a program change request just so you can see how you do that. So I'm just going to scroll down here and I'm going to say, click create, right? And I'm just going to create a program change request. I'm sorry, somehow I'm not spelling. Okay, and I'll click create. Oh, it's mad at me because I have many program change requests. So it wants me to give it another name. So I will. All right. So the first place it's going to take me to is our 3-panel WYSIWYG form builder. You can see here on the left, here are all of those data fields that you can drag and drop into the form, right? So we call them gadgets. You can call them data fields, data gadgets. Here on the top are all those basic validated fields. On the bottom are our smart fields that are connected to your data sources. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. In the middle, that's my WYSIWYG. That's where I'm going to create a form. On the right-hand panel, you can see that's blank. That's where I'm able to configure in a really easy and simple way each one of those fields. So I'm just going to drag in a section, simple drag and drop, right? I'm going to call it program change request. And then I'm just going to drag in some data fields so you can see what that looks like. You can see right when I drag that in, I'm going to prompt for the student's name, but I'm going to drag another one in. That blue highlight, this is unique to Kuali Build, where underneath the covers here really isn't a grid, it's really a webbing, and you're able to see exactly where you want to drag and drop your field. I'm going to say advisor here, prompt for the advisor. Again, you can see that blue highlight again, that ease of use. I'm going to prompt for the current program. I'm going to prompt for that requested. Ooh, I need that. Requested program. And then, of course, the department associated with that program. We always need to know that. Department and whoosh, department. And then I just want to know the reason. Obviously, this is a really truncated form. You would do it a little bit with, full sentences and things. But we just want to show you how easy it is to create a form. In under a minute, I can create a fully functioning form, beautifully formatted. And if I drag my browser in, you can see all of our forms. Joel talked a little bit about this. All of our forms are automatically mobile ready and accessible. We do that for you up front. But of course, anytime that we have information already in our system, we do not want to have anybody rekey it, right? Mary Jane is Mary Jane when she's a freshman, but she's MJ by the time she's sophomore. The interesting data point here is this. It used to be 5 years ago, we had data that students didn't care if they spelled anything right on the form. They figured you would get it, right? It's actually now student, faculty, and staff. Everybody is so used to type aheads that they just think, well, I'll put this in here and they'll figure out what I mean, and not really understanding how computers work, right? And how software works. You're creating a new set of data by creating a differently spelled thing. So anytime that we can use information that's already in our system, we want to, right? So I'm just going to collapse over here on the left. My cursor's on the left. I'm going to collapse this basic field just so I can come down here to our smart gadgets. So these are those smart fields that are connected to the API integrations in the background. Your technical folks have done that for you, right? And our API tool is really robust. It connects with any RESTful API that's returning a JSON array. So people ask me all the time, can you connect with this? Can you connect with this? Can you connect with this? Well, if you've got a RESTful API that's returning a JSON array, the answer is by golly, yes. And so let's just grab a data lookup. I want to look up some data here in my field. I'm going to pull this right here next to student, and I'm going to call this student. We never need to ask somebody who has signed into our SSO. Of course, when you're implementing builds, you connect your SSO. So somebody has to sign into your SSO and be validated. We never need to ask them their name because they've already signed in. So I've just chosen a data source, right? I'm going to go to my data sources. Here I'm going to use my sys. It's prompting me, where do I want to get that information from? And I want to get that information from that signed in user, right? They've signed in and I want to get that from their school ID. And now I can get rid of this field. Now, this is the cool thing about our smart gadgets. Of course, we know more information, and when we have information that's linked to other information, we want those auto-filled linked fields. So I'm just going to go over here to my configuration panel. I'm going to grab this auto-linked field gadget. You can see this is all the information I have available to me that I have permission to see, right? Because there's permissions wrapped around, there's API access control wrapped around all of these data sources. And I can just go right here to this advisor, pull it in, and you can see my anchor field and my linked field, right? Now, I'm going to jump to a form that I've gone through this again, where I've grabbed a data gadget and I've tied it to the data source around the current program. I've grabbed a data gadget, a data lookup list. You can see my anchor. I've pulled it in. I've chosen my data source of curriculum management programs, and I've linked the department and the description to it really easily. So now when I go to that form, I preview that form again, the same form that we were previewing before, but I don't need to ask the person their name. They can't give me a different name, right? If a student, faculty, or staff changes their name on your campus, you want them to go into their personal record and change it there, because that's the same data point that's going to be used across your campus. We know their advisor, current, and so now Jamie can just choose her major. She can confirm that it's what she wants by reading that description, and she can turn that in. So pretty simple form here. If we were to look at some more complex forms, like I showed
Liz,
before, yeah.
there's some questions that are starting to come in. So
Okay.
is it okay if we answer them as we go?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, so the first question is, does Kuali Build tie back into other Kuali products such as curriculum management? For example, with this forum, could you put all the programs into the current program and requested program list?
I love that question, because I sort of shortcutted this right here. You didn't get to see me choose this data source, but that is actually our curriculum management data source that has been hooked up to my system. Let me just do it for you, since I didn't. I sort of truncated that for you, but I've just pulled over a data lookup list, right? I'm going to call this, CM programs, curriculum management programs, and I'm just going to choose my data source. I'm going to go, here's all the list of the data sources that have been hooked up to my demo, instance. But here's my curriculum management programs. And that is a Kuali curriculum management programs list there that I'm using in my instance. Great question. Thanks for asking it.
There's more.
Okay.
Is Kuali Build only useful if you use Kuali's grants management system, or do customers use Kuali Build's capabilities in environments where Kuali's core systems for research administration are not in place?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because Kuali Build is system agnostic, right? So you don't have to be using Kuali Research. You don't have to be using Kuali Curriculum Management as much as we would like you to, because we're system agnostic, because you just need that RESTful API, right? We can connect with any RESTful API that's returning a JSON array. If you're dumping data for some reason, from my technical people on the call, you would just need to make sure that that's returning in that pick list that you want to have in Kuali Build. But yeah, we are system agnostic. Great question. Thank you for that question. Is there another one, Joel?
Yes.
I guess I could.
How easy, you kind of have answered this, but how
Okay.
easy is it to add data fields? Do they need to be created by an engineer? And that part we haven't really talked about, or can a functional person create them?
Okay, there's a lot of great fodder here for my answer. So I'm pulling in a data field, right? Like this data lookup list that I just did a moment ago. And I came here and I chose from this data, right? This is streaming this is mapping from API integrations in our API tool, and it's bringing it in to our form builder, right? You can also do push integrations in our workflow, which I'll show you in a second. So that's one way to bring it in. What if you're a person who doesn't have a technical person to be able to create these for you? I'll show you this one right here, this SUNY campus test one. I created myself from a Google sheet, and we have documentation on that. So I needed a list of all 80 or 64 SUNY campuses right there. And I didn't have it. So I created a Google sheet, with a list of those campuses and their SED codes next to them. Let's just put that in because it's fun to see it. And I was able to create that myself. So that's the second way. So you do want your technical folks to create API integrations if those are the sources that you want to use on your campus. You can create your own integrations. If you're that kind of person that wants to create Google Sheets and create integrations, you can do that. But here's the really great way. You can share data from one Kuali Build app to the next Kuali Build app. So if you want to create a data set in a Kuali Build app, you want to create that data set there, then you can share it. Let me show you because I have one here in my system. Let me grab another data lookup list. Let me bring my browser down and let me choose my data source. I did not have an API integration in my system to any type of award repository. So when I talked to research offices, I wasn't really able to show them it very well. So I created my own award repository in a Kuali Build app. And it's going to work the same way as any API integration. And so now I can go to my auto-linked fields and I can say, well, I want the award ID next to that. I want to have the sponsor. I probably want to have the award amount. I probably want to have the award ID. And you can see my anchor, all my linked fields. This is linking directly to a Kuali Build app. It works the same as any other integration. So now I can say, okay, I have this nuclear slant electron split award, and you can see it autofill all of those. Joel, would you add anything else to the answer to that question?
No, that you answered it really. Yeah, I guess you answered it great. The integrations from an IT perspective, you have the ability to control who can create integrations in the first place, and you can actually limit that to something we call spaces that I don't know if you're covering or not, but we can partition your enterprise into a variety of different spaces, and you can control who can create integrations in those spaces. However, if they don't have access to, if they don't have the rights to work with the integration itself, they won't be able to do that. So for example, you could create an integration that pulls data from PeopleSoft or Workday or Lucien or anything else, and you have to have access to that integration itself. So not only do they have to have the ability to create integrations, which they could do with Google Sheets or whatever, but they actually have to have access to the integrations themselves. So it's very, very secure. But once you've created those, and you've given the form designers the appropriate access to those integrations, then they can use them in their forms the way Liz is doing now.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize this part because I didn't actually introduce myself, did I? But I teach English literature, and I still do it as an adjunct. I teach monsters of British lit, Beowulf to Dracula. I'm sort of a technically savvy, non-technical person. So I'm this non-technical person that has to solve my problems, right? Solve my own problems. So when I needed that award repository, I created this Kuali Build app. It's a simple app. I just needed a data set, right? I needed a bunch of data sets. And so let's look at this form that just gave me basic information, right? I created that. And then as the admin of this app, I went to my data sharing permissions and I said, who can use the data from this app that I just created? Of course, for my demo purposes, I'm saying it can be used with everyone, but I could say, no, I only want this to be shared with that cover sheet that's going to consume it. Nobody else can see this data set. I'm able to control it, the data sharing between two apps in the same way that, or in a similar way that I'm able to control the API integrations. So thank you for that question. It's a great question.
Liz, one follow-up question, and then we'll let you just continue.
Okay.
John from Olds College asked, how easy is it to link CM to Build? And I'm just going to answer that. It's actually quite easy if we would just help you do it. It's like, it takes us 5 minutes to get it set up. It's a super easy integration setup. You could do it yourself, but we're happy to help you.
All right, let's get going. So this is, I've shown you the more complex forms at the beginning. I showed you all of those different forms of, obviously, this is a really simple form that I'm now going to create a workflow for. Remember, one Kuali Build app contains the form, the workflow or approval process, and then that document management. So I'm up here in the right-hand corner, and I'm going from the form builder of this app to the workflow builder of this app. So here's our workflow builder. It's also drag and drop, that same UX, that same ease of use, that same delight, right? We want you to be delighted. So we have 6 different step types. You can read through those there. I'm just going to grab an approval step type. I can drag and drop it in. You can see my configuration screen, my configuration panel come up there on the right. I'm going to call this advisor because I'm going to send it to the advisor first. And that's going to route to a person specified on the form. And I'm going to grab the people on the form there. And that is the advisor. And that's how quick it is. I had a woman a couple of months ago in a demo say to me, "You are not doing that live," as I built out the workflow. And I had to keep saying, I am doing it live. And so I had her call out what she wanted me to do just to sort of approve I was doing it live. How easy it is to create a workflow on your approval process attached to your form. Now, I want to route the next one to the department chair. So what does that mean? That's a role, right? So we have this really robust role-based approval system where our campuses will sync in their organizational hierarchy into Build, and the organizational hierarchy in Build is able then to move up through an approval process. So I'm going to route to a person in a role in a group that's tied to the form, right? So that's going to be that requested program department, the department that we have on that form. It's going to prompt me for which role, and I'm going to grab that department chair role right there. There you go. And that one's done. That's ready to go. I'm going to do that one more time with the college deans, just so you can see it go up the hierarchy. And again, a person in a role, and in this case, still tied to that department, but our workflow builder knows how to move up that hierarchy. So I can just grab college dean and it knows the college dean of that department. Now we're about to do a cool thing. When this gets approved, I'm going to grab this notification email, right? And this I want to grab, this is going to go to the student. It gets approved. You want to send an email. And of course, I probably would have sent an email directly after the form submission to say, hey, we received your submission. But for our purposes here, we'll just do it this way. A person specified on the form is where I'm going to route it, and that's going to be to that submitter. Now, I'm going to pause here. Every data field in the form is available to you as a variable in your email template. That means you're able to give that kind of specificity and context that your email reader really needs, right? So here in the email subject line, I'm going to say your program change request. And I could add a variable here for time. I'm just going to go forward. I'm going to say, dear, oh, you know what? I've been changing this because we have feedback from our student, faculty, and staff, and they don't like dear anymore. So I'm just going to say hi. And I'm going to grab that. These are all the variables, right? On the form, and also metadata that we know is available to us. So I'm just going to grab that student name, and I'm going to say your request to change to the, and I'm going to add again that variable in the form, which is that requested program.
Let me just interrupt, Liz.
Yeah.
We're going to get to your questions, folks. I'm just waiting for the right time in this presentation to ask them. Sorry about that, Liz.
I'll finish this part, and let me do a little branch, and then let's get to the workflow questions. And that way I might have answered some of them along the way. Yep. I'm just going to bold this because I'm going to show it to you in a minute, and I like it bolded. And I'll just end this with a little love from the registrar.
You can say with love, but you can't say dear.
I know. What's really funny is I actually have customers have told me that after the demo, they started saying with love on their communication, the registrars with students, and that it's made a difference. Like they kind of go, oh, Somebody loves me, so I'm sticking with it. All right. So now I have that email notification. The next thing I want to do, right? Because remember in the form, I was reading information in those data sources, those approved data sources that I had. With the workflow, I have an integration step type. I'm here on the left with all of my different step types. I have this integration step type, which is a push integration. That means I'm going to take data from the form and push it back into my system. This student has a new program of study. They have a new major. I want to update the SIS, right? So I'm just going to come up here and say update SIS. And then I'm going to choose that data source the same way that I did in the form. I only have a few push integrations in here. I'm just going to grab my SIS, and then I have that. Remember, that's going to be developed in that in our integration tool so that it's reusable. That's one of our points, right? One of our data points for today's webinar is ease of use, which I think we're covering, a lot, but also this idea of reusable data sources so that you're just simply able to say, choose a data source. I have all these data sources that have been set up for me, and I can drag and drop those into not only my form, but also my workflow. So the last thing I'll do before taking questions is we want to talk about how we branch and how we incorporate not only conditional logic from the form, but business rules that we might have, right? And so this is a program change request. I could grab a branch and put it right here. And by the way, just for fun, we have not found an end to our branching. University of Utah used to hold our record at 42 steps in the workflow, but now it's UMass Amherst that has close to 100. Just a lot of branching, right? A lot of conditional logic going on there, but I could create a branch right here after the form submission. Let's say that they are requesting to join microbiology, but microbiology requires a 3.0 GPA. So I could say, well, if this is microbiology and if the student's GPA is less than 3, right? That's going to be a branch. And I'm going to send them a really sweet email that says, why did you even apply? Something very kind and sweet. But I don't need this branch, so I'm going to get rid of it. The branch that I do want to do is right here, in between advisor and department. And I hope you're noticing that blue highlight. When you're creating, or more importantly, even iterating and revising a workflow, you just continue to drag and drop those around. I'm going to create a branch here that says, when that requested program department, right? When that department is history. Now, your campuses probably don't work this way. Your campuses probably, all your departments behave exactly the same and nobody wants to do anything differently, but we're going to pretend like the history department won't play with the other departments. I dragged in the department chair, I dragged in the college dean, and now I have this branch that says if the department is history, I'm going to grab an approval and put it in there. I'm going to call it Myra because it's just Myra. Myra has worked there for 30 years. And she is, and of course, I use this example to show you that we believe it's best practice to use role-based approvals. That way, when something changes in a workflow or something changes in your organization, you have a new department chair, you have a new admin, whoever they are, you just change that in your organization and it's going to automatically update here. But sometimes we need to route to a specific person. That's why I do this little bit right here, so that you can see that we can route to authenticated people in your system. So I'm going to pause here and ask you for questions.
So one of the questions that you don't need to ask, there are plenty. So one of the questions is, can multiple roles approve a single request?
Yes. In fact, it'll be fun for me to show you this right here. Let's just use Myra as an example. What if I was routing to a group, right? And I have a number of groups here. I think this one is a group. Let's see if it is. Anytime I have a group, right? So let's say I have 5 people, but only 1 needs to respond. I can actually choose what percentage of people must respond, what percentage of people must approve this for it to go forward. So again, you set up your groups and then you can route to a group. A great question. Thank you.
Another question is, how does the workflow, I think they meant to say no, how does the workflow know which college dean supervises the specified department chair?
Yeah, that's in the group organization. I don't know that we have time for me to go to our group system, but most campuses have some kind of organizational system that they've already set up on their campus. 95% of our campuses do. And so they have Active Directory or something like that, that they just sync into Build. And then we have a group service that is able to follow your organizational hierarchy. So it's a parent-child organizational hierarchy. You know, here's these colleges, here's all the departments in these colleges, and it's all set up in implementation. It's something that we routinely do in implementation. I will add to that. I know I'm talking fast, but I want to make sure I get to say everything. I will add to that you can use it in a hybrid way. What if you have a group organizational system on your campus, you have Active Directory or something like that, but as you use Kuali Build, you want to add different groups and things for specific approval process. Of course, you can do that. Our groups service is really robust. We even, in fact, it's Davidson that I talked about earlier. They sync in 3 different organizations. They have a different hierarchy for their financial system. They have a different hierarchy for their HR system. Who are those managers? And their academic hierarchy, you know, from departments to colleges. So a really robust service there for you.
Liz, can I just jump in on that?
Yeah.
Let me just jump in on that for a second. The group hierarchy management for Build is pretty extraordinary. It allows you, as Liz said, to define your hierarchy. You know, departments are part of colleges or whatever. And then once you define that sort of template for the hierarchy, then you can fill in all the information. But once you've filled it in, you can use it anywhere you want in the forms or in the workflows. It's pretty powerful. One of the things, Liz, I'm assuming you're going to show tests.
Yeah.
Let's pause on questions for a minute because I want to make sure you get time for that.
Okay, so pause questions.
I'm going to keep the questions coming if you want to, but I'm going to pause asking them while you get them.
Great. And thank you for fielding them, Joel. I don't pay attention to Zoom while
No problem.
Okay, everybody, we're at if you've ever seen a demo from me, and I know a couple of people on the call have seen a demo from me, but we're to my very favorite part of Kuali Build right now. I get excited about it. If you have never tested a workflow, if you've never tested an approval process, then you don't understand how I feel about this because it is wretched, right? You have to substitute in your own email or a dummy email for every single variable that you want to test. And then what if it's a 10-page form that you've constructed and every field on that form is required, right? Then in order to test all the variables in your workflow, you have to fill out that 10-page form every time. Or you have to go deconstruct your form. It's wretched. I'm just telling you it's wretched. So we have a workflow tester. It's our workflow simulator. On the back end, the code is exactly the same. So it's triggering the exact same code. It's just not sending anything out on the front end. Let's run this test. So the first thing, of course, that triggers the workflow is that form submission. And here's that thing about that 10-page form, right? So our workflow simulator highlights the fields that are required for the workflow to go through. It's interesting that even on a 10-page form, it's not that many fields, right? You need to know this and this and this to know which way this is going to branch. So it lets me know that. So I get to validate that my form is behaving the way that I want it to behave, and then I submit it. Now, the first place it's going to take me to is this email. This is our default email notification that gets sent out to Nora Haley, right? This is automated. And of course, this is our default notification. If you need to configure this, if you need to add contextual information, you're able to do that. But Nora, let me say one more thing. This will come from you, right? This email will come from your institution, not from Kuali. So you're able to keep up that training. Don't click on things that aren't official, that aren't coming from us. So they'll come from you. So Nora Haley's able to click right in that email, begin her review. She's going to be taken directly to the form. She can deny it, send it back, or approve it. Then it's going to take me to my parallel routes because I created, of course, that branch. Here's that email notification to Myra because I chose history on the form. Myra clicks begin review. Myra is able, oh, do you remember? This is that I changed this to a group response. And so you can see how that will work. The one person that's required to do it gets that response. Now I go past that parallel route. Here's that email that we created together. Dear Jamie, your request to change, or hi Jamie, the request to change to the history program has been approved with love. And then we finally get to that push integration. If you're a technical person, you can view the exact JSON that's being pushed out there back into your system. You've mapped that in our API integration tool. Okay, so Joel, we're at the end of workflow. The next thing I'll let you know that I'm going to show you is how do we manage all these documents. Remember, a Kuali Build app contains a form, the workflow approval process, and then all the documents that are produced by that form. So the next place I'll take you is the document management. But I want to pause again here for questions on the workflow.
Just a quick question. Is there a portal for each person in a workflow to keep tabs on approvals they have accepted, denied? Then feel free to go into documents.
Yeah, that's actually the document dashboard. So that's actually where everybody would keep tabs of what's going on in the workflow. So let's go there. That was a great segue. Thanks, Joe. That was a great segue. So let's go to document dashboard. So this is obviously a different app because we hadn't submitted any forms in the app that we just created ourselves. Here's some key things about this dashboard. Every data field in the form is available to you as a column in your dashboard. I can decide what I want to see, what I don't want to see. I can decide where it is. I can change it and move it. And then I can sort it, filter it, and save it as a view. That view can be a report. It can be some, a filtered, sorted, saved report that I can export. It can also be like Joel just said, let's say you have 3 admins who are all administering this app. Let's say you have a study abroad internship where it's going to London, Paris, and Rome, and you want it to be one data set, you want it to be one app, but you have 3 different admins, one managing London, one managing Paris, and one managing Rome. They would just create their own view. And they can create as many views as they want so that they're able to manage these data sets. Are there questions that you think address that particular part of this, Joel, or should I just keep going?
No, I think in answer to Craig's question here, if you look at the workflow status, you can see things that are in progress, you can see things that are completed or whatever. You can go into proposals and you can see, you can track where it is and who accepted it, who put notes onto the proposal. You can see information about the proposal as it went.
That's what I'm doing next. I'll show them that next. Let's just pause here for a second because I'm glad Joel just said something. So you can use any data field in the form as a column, but there's also metadata. So Joel just pointed out this metadata, workflow total runtime, workflow status, time on current step. Of course we know that. We know when this was created. We know when it was submitted. We have metadata available to us that you can use in your management of this form. But let's go to what Joel was talking about. I've thrown an error state here on purpose so that I can show it off in our demos. If for some reason a workflow gets stuck, right? You don't know why, but it just gets stuck. It's not moving forward, it's stuck. It will automatically throw an error state, and the admin of this app will automatically receive an email notification, hey, you've got an error. So the admin can come in here and click on that document, just like Joel was just talking about. And let me pull my browser back out a little bit. Okay. So every single document, doesn't have to be an error state, every single document has an auditable, right? Auditable approval process trail attached to it. So over here on the left, I'm going to toggle over to workflow status. You can see it's going to show me exactly what's happened. Who approved this? I'm the queen and dean of everything in my in my instance, so that I'm the approver, and the timestamp available to it. I can see any comments that any of my approvers made. And you see I do this a lot, so let's go down to the bottom. It lets me know what that error was. There are no users in the department chair role of anthropology, right? So that means it hit that group service, right, that we talked about before, and the department chair's role was empty. And so when it hit it, it couldn't send to anybody, right? And so as the admin, I can go and get that fixed and retry it. I can skip it if I have authority to do so, and I can just say, this role hasn't been filled, so this needs to be skipped. I can also reassign it, right? So, and reassign can be used for a number of reasons. What if somebody got in a car accident and can't do their approvals right now? Maybe they're out on leave, maybe they're on sabbatical. One of the ways that our customers, we hadn't anticipated it, are using reassign is, what if you have an approver that's just not doing their approvals? Well, they're using the reassign to escalate to their boss. So for all of those reasons, you can simply click reassign, document why it's being reassigned, and you can do that. You can also, I call this our hammer. You can hammer a resend notification, like I want to send 10 notifications to this person right now. But I can do this in a more gentle way. In every workflow that I have, I can go to my workflow settings, and for the entire workflow, I can say, you know what? For every step in this workflow, I want to send a reminder notification every 3 days. Well, I can even do it more granularly. What if I don't want everybody to be treated the same, right? What if I need my department chair to get a notification every 3 days, but I need my college dean to get a notification every 5 days? They get a little fussy if I send them an email every 3 days. So I'm able to, for nudges, some people call them nudges or reminders, I have a hammer, I just hammer them, or I can schedule that for the entire workflow, or I can schedule it for individual steps in that workflow. So let me pause again. Let me go back to my document list here. Let me pause again for questions.
There are no specific questions on the document list. If you have them, please type them in.
I know we're almost at time, but I can talk fast. If you
So let me know if you want me to jump to some of the other questions or.
Yeah, I think we might be at time. I think what I would say to your questions is, of course, I am available and I'm happy to, please email me. I am happy to, I think I have a QR code. Let me go here. Yeah. I am email me. It's just liz.christianson@kuali.co. You can go to our website and there's a form there. I have questions. You can also use this QR code to be able to contact us with questions. I can demo on a dime, as you might have noticed. And so happy to set up a demo with your group so that you're able to ask your questions live through that. But I do want to just thank everyone for coming. I want to thank Joel for being here. I know his time is super valuable, and thank you so much for being my co-partner here. Thank you, all of you who attended. Man, we love to see you here. We love to show off Build. Email me with your questions, and let's talk more about Build. Thank you so much. Paul, did you have any wrap up here?
That's it for me, guys. You were great, Liz. Joel, thank you. I know we have some questions that we weren't able to get to during the webinar, but we want to be sensitive to everybody's time here. We know folks have meetings coming up. We will answer those questions offline. You'll get a follow-up email from me asking if you guys would like to maybe perhaps meet with Liz or one of my team members, or if you have any additional follow-up questions that weren't addressed during the webinar. And with that, I think we'll let everybody go. It was
everyone.
great, Liz. Wonderful as always. Joel, thank you. And thanks everyone for attending. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.